everyone, welcome to Art Studio 320. My name is Melanie. I rescue furniture, refinish it, and make it look pretty again. This week's project is what I'm going to call a credenza. It is going to be used as a TV stand. My daughter bought it, and I am going to refinish it for her. She wants me to stain the whole thing, but there is a challenge. This veneer is paper thin. It won't take much to go through to the particle board. Overall, it's in pretty good shape. It just needs some love. Stick around. Because the veneer on this piece was so thin, I decided to do a lot of hand sanding, and when I used my orbital sander, I used 220 grit, and that's as gritty as I got because I was not about to make a big mistake by using 120 and going right through that veneer. Luckily, the finish came off fairly easily. This little spot was about 2 inches long, and it was appearing to be moisture that had gotten underneath that veneer and made it swell, and as a result made the veneer crack. So what I was doing is just carefully lifting up that veneer and putting some wood glue underneath and pressing it back down until it was dry. Every scratch I found like this one, I hand sanded with 220 grit and just carefully got rid of that finish, and then went back with my orbital sander and sanded around those areas so I wouldn't go through the veneer. Once the glue dried on this small warped area on the veneer, I went back with some plastic wood X, the wood filler, and just filled in the cracks so that when I went back and painted on some stain, you weren't going to be able to tell. I discovered that the trim around this piece was solid, so I could use the orbital sander without worrying too much. And it's a good thing because I needed to really get into that grain to get that stain out. When you have a really long piece, it can be difficult to sand the ends. So I tried to do it sideways, and then I ended up putting it on its end and standing on a ladder because it was too hard to hold up that orbital sander and apply pressure to the side. When you plan on staining an entire piece, you need to really pay attention to how you're sanding. I had two things I needed to worry about. I didn't want to go through any veneer, and I wanted to make sure that all of the areas were well sanded so that there wasn't any stain left behind to interfere with the new stain, whatever it was I was going to put on it. I used my orbital sander on the doors as well with the 220 grit. I just had to be very careful and do it quickly, and thankfully the finish came off fairly easily. There was an area on this drawer, you can see the green, it was gross, so I needed to take it out. It was a challenge, but I got it out. I had discussed with my daughter the colors for this piece, and First, she wanted it all one color, but when I discovered that the wood was different, I thought, okay, why don't I do just a natural stain on most of it and try a different color on the other. But this white wood, I guess maybe it was birch. I don't quite know what it was, but it did not take stain well. I tried a darker stain and it just looked dirty. And then I tried this stain and I thought maybe it was going to match okay, but once I put the natural stain on, it didn't quite go, and I don't know. There were two different choices I gave my daughter, and this was one of them, and it looked okay. I thought it looked all right, but I think it looked a little bit better with just natural stain on the whole thing. It gave a nice contrast, and she agreed. I think the wood that I'm working with is teak. I have worked with it before on mid-century modern pieces, and it always has that beautiful red color. So you don't need anything other than just a natural stain. After I had finished a couple of the drawers, I put them together and I took a picture of them so that my daughter could choose. Now the one on the left-hand side was the stain, and the one on the right was just the natural. This again was the drawer that I put a darker stain on the top and a redder stain on the bottom. Now I went back and wiped it off with mineral spirits. There was a little more color, but you can see it just looks dirty. It just didn't look good at all. So I think that the choice to make it natural was a good choice. You could also paint it for sure, but my daughter really wanted it to be all stained, and I agreed. I think it looked really nice with the two contrasting colors. When I finish a piece of furniture now, I pay a lot of attention to the drawers because they are a big part of the furniture. You put your clothes in them, you put things in them, and you want them to be nice. You don't want them to smell weird. You don't want them to have splinters. So I have now decided that drawers are a top priority. So I sand them all down. I don't necessarily paint them. I just sand them down and I put finish on them. I put a top coat so that they feel good and they smell good. They don't have any lingering smell from the last owner. Another thing I always do is put mineral spirits on a piece before I put any stain, and I forgot here. So that's why I stopped and I went to the mineral spirits first. It just allows the wood to soak up the stain a little bit more evenly. Now this piece, I don't know if it would have been a problem because it was just a natural stain, but I went ahead and stopped anyway and put that mineral spirits on first. I was getting ready to paint these two little cubbies, and I needed to make sure that they were super clean. So I went over with a tack cloth, and then I cleaned it off with vinegar and water, and then I went back and did the tack cloth again. I decided to use coal black on the inside. The finish that was already there was brown, and it didn't look bad, but it smelled weird, and I thought, well, why not just paint it black, That way you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. It looks nice and brand new, and I like the black with the teak, if that's what it is. And it just made it look nice and crisp and clean. I always tape areas that I don't want to get paint on. It saves you a lot of time. Otherwise, you're having to do a lot of extra work. It's unreasonable to think that you're not going to hit a place that you don't want to hit with paint. It just is. So it's just easier to cover everything up with painter's tape, and if there's a little bleed through here and there, that's easy to sand off. When I went back to do the second coat, I'm using the flashlight on my phone because it's black and it's really hard to see inside that little cubby. And that helped a lot because there were areas that I completely missed because I couldn't see them. I'm using, again, the Natural Stain by Minwax, and it's called Natural. That's the color, if you want to call it a color. It isn't a color. It has no pigment in it. It's just basically an oil, and you can put that on in place of the stain, and then you put top coat over that. That will give you the color of the wood that you want. Kind of like when a stone is wet, it looks better. Well, wood's the same way. I put the stain on, and then I put the top coat over that. Now, there were a few areas that I did break through that veneer, and not very many, and thankfully they were on the edge. That tends to be the case. And I just picked a couple of stains that were similar to the color of the wood and did the best I could. The area that I'm sanding right now actually sticks out past the drawers when the drawers are in, and that means that they show. My recommendation is that you always put the drawers in and kind of evaluate what needs to be finished and what doesn't need to be finished. Otherwise, you're going to be going back at the end. This is Big Mama's Butter. I put that on the inside of the drawers and the inside of the cabinet so that it smells nice, and it also makes the drawers look better. They look brand new after you finish them. This is an odor killer primer that I sprayed on the inside of the cabinet so that it wouldn't have that weird smell anymore. And it took it all away, and it's clear. You can't see it at all. This is an ultra flat finish. It's a top coat that I use. It's an oil-based polyurethane. And you might think, wow, you're brushing a lot. Well, it's an oil base, so you have a little bit more leeway. And this wood it took a little extra pressure to make sure that it was getting into the grain. And the finish came out really nice, so it wasn't an issue at all. Now, if it was a water-based, it could have been an issue. You don't want to mess around too much with water-based because it does dry pretty quickly. I put 3 coats of polyurethane on the top and 2 coats on the rest, just to make sure that it was fully protected. Well, this piece turned out to be a really nice surprise. I had predicted quite a few issues with the wood, some dings on the top that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to repair or get rid of, and some things on the sides, and really it turned out really nice. And there's one scratch on the side that I was not able to get rid of completely, but it kind of blends in, so it's really not noticeable, and it is on the side. All of the repairs I did came out great. The one weird thing was the wood on these poles, the areas that are just a blonde color, they did not take stain well, and it turns out that they look really nice just like this. I love the contrast, and so does my daughter, so I think this is a win. Thank you for being here. Good luck on your next project, and I will see you next time.
You can do it.
Come closer, dance for me. Easy, tiger, easy, let your hair down. Come closer, let me see all your million faces and all your million mistakes. You don't need to hide.
say thanks for watching my video. You can find more videos just like this on my YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe.